Have you ever arrived in a city and felt that it was trying to impress you? Some cities do it with skyscrapers, some with luxury districts, some with flashing lights, crowded streets, and endless noise. But every once in a while, you find a place that does not need to compete for attention, a place that does not shout, a place that simply waits, and the longer you stay, the more extraordinary it becomes. That place is Palangka Raya. Deep in the heart of Borneo, surrounded by vast tropical forests, mighty rivers, and landscapes that seem untouched by time, lies one of Indonesia's most fascinating yet overlooked cities. At first glance, Palangka Raya feels different. The roads seem unusually wide, the sky appears larger, the air feels lighter. There is space to breathe, space to think, space to see nature and civilization existing side by side. For many travelers, the first impression is simple, quiet. But Palangka Raya is not a city defined by silence. It is a city defined by stories. Stories of vision, stories of nature, stories of resilience, stories of a future imagined long before most people ever heard its name. And once you begin uncovering those stories, you realize that Palangka Raya may be one of the most remarkable cities in Indonesia. To understand Palangka Raya, you must first understand its scale. Most people assume that Indonesia's largest urban areas are the sprawling metropolitan giants of Java. But few realize that Palangka Raya possesses one of the largest administrative territories of any city in the entire nation. Covering more than 2,678 square kilometers, the city's territory is larger than many regencies and significantly larger than several major cities combined. The numbers are difficult to comprehend until you experience them yourself. You can travel through vast stretches of forest, rivers, wetlands, and open landscapes while still remaining within the administrative boundaries of the city. This extraordinary size creates something increasingly rare in the modern world: balance. Unlike many urban centers where development consumes every available space, Palangka Raya still allows nature to dominate the horizon. Green landscapes remain visible, dense forests still thrive. The sounds of birds and insects are never far away. And even in developed districts, nature constantly reminds visitors that they are living in one of Earth's greatest ecological regions. This relationship between city and wilderness is not an accident. It is part of the city's identity. Palangka Raya was never designed to become just another crowded urban center. From the very beginning, it was envisioned differently. And that vision began with one of the most influential figures in Indonesian history. Indonesia's first president, the legendary Sukarno, saw something special in this land. During the early years of the Republic, Sukarno imagined a future Indonesia that would not remain centered solely on Java. He dreamed of a nation whose development reflected the vastness of the archipelago, a nation that looked outward, a nation that embraced all regions equally. And among the locations that captured his imagination, Palangka Raya stood out. Sukarno once envisioned this city as a potential future capital of Indonesia. The idea was ambitious. The location sat near the geographical center of the archipelago. The land was expansive. The opportunities for planned development were enormous. It represented a blank canvas upon which a modern Indonesian city could be built. Although the national capital ultimately remained elsewhere for decades before the later development of Nusantara, the dream itself left a lasting impact. The city's layout reflects that vision even today. Wide boulevards stretch across the landscape. Urban planning prioritizes openness. Public spaces feel intentional rather than accidental. Visitors often notice that driving through Palangka Raya feels surprisingly comfortable. There is room to move, room to grow, room to imagine. Perhaps that is why many people who visit the city leave with a sense that it was built not only for the present, but for generations yet to come. Yet the city's greatest treasure may not be found in its roads or buildings. It lies beyond them. Because Palangka Raya sits at the gateway to one of the world's most important ecosystems. The tropical rainforests of Borneo are among the oldest on Earth. These forests existed long before modern nations emerged, long before cities rose, long before humans mapped the rivers that now cross the island. And remarkably, these forests remain astonishingly close to the city. Within a relatively short journey from the urban centre, visitors can find themselves surrounded by towering trees, peat swamp forests, winding waterways, and ecosystems unlike anywhere else on the planet. These landscapes are not merely beautiful, they are globally significant. Borneo's forests help regulate climate systems, store enormous amounts of carbon, and provide habitat for thousands of species found nowhere else. Among them is one of the most beloved animals on Earth, the orangutan. For many visitors, seeing an orangutan is a life-changing experience. Their intelligence is unmistakable, their expressions feel almost human, their presence reminds us of the fragile connection between humanity and the natural world. The region surrounding Palangka Raya plays an important role in conservation efforts that seek to protect these incredible primates and restore damaged habitats. Researchers, conservationists, and local communities work together to ensure that future generations will continue to share this planet with one of our closest relatives. In a world where wildlife is disappearing at alarming rates, Palangka Raya serves as a reminder that preservation is still possible, that hope still exists, that nature can recover when people choose to protect it. One of the most breathtaking places near the city is the famous Bukit Tangkiling. Rising above the surrounding landscape, this natural attraction offers panoramic views across vast stretches of forest and countryside. Standing atop its rocky formations, visitors often experience something increasingly rare in modern life: perspective. The endless green horizon seems to stretch forever. The scale of Borneo becomes impossible to ignore, and for a moment, the noise of the world fades away. But no story about Palangka Raya would be complete without discussing the river that has shaped its past, present, and future, the Kahayan River. For centuries, this powerful waterway has served as a lifeline for communities throughout central Kalimantan. Long before modern highways connected settlements, the river connected people. It transported goods, it carried traditions, it supported livelihoods. It became a source of food, commerce, and cultural identity. Even today, the river remains deeply woven into everyday life. Its waters reflect the changing sky. Its currents tell stories of generations who lived along its banks. Its presence defines the rhythm of the city. As evening approaches, locals and visitors often gather near the iconic Kahayan Bridge. What happens next is simple. The sun begins to descend. The sky transforms into shades of gold, orange, pink, and deep crimson. Those colours dance across the surface of the river. The city slows, conversations soften, and for a few unforgettable moments, nature creates a masterpiece that no photograph can fully capture. Many cities offer sunsets, few offer experiences like this. Palangka Raya is often called the beautiful city. At first, the nickname may sound like a marketing slogan, but spend enough time here and it begins to make sense. Beauty in Palangka Raya is not concentrated in one landmark. It exists throughout the urban landscape. Roundabouts adorned with monuments, public parks welcoming families, tree-lined boulevards, open spaces designed for community life, clean streets, expansive views. There is a feeling that the city breathes, and because of that, the people living here often move at a different pace, less rushed, less frantic, more connected to their surroundings. Many visitors arrive expecting very little. They leave wondering why more people are not talking about this place. Yet perhaps Palangka Raya's most powerful quality is not its geography, not its history, not even its nature. It is its people. Although the city is deeply connected to Dayak heritage, it has evolved into a vibrant, multicultural community. People from countless backgrounds call Palangka Raya home. Different ethnicities, different traditions, different religions, different stories, and yet they coexist with remarkable harmony. Mosques stand alongside churches. Temples share neighborhoods with other places of worship. Cultural festivals welcome everyone. Communities celebrate diversity rather than fear it. In an era when division often dominates headlines, Palangka Raya quietly demonstrates another possibility, that differences can strengthen a society, that identity and unity can exist together, that respect remains one of humanity's greatest achievements. Visitors quickly notice this atmosphere. It is difficult to describe, but easy to feel. A warmth, a sincerity, a sense of belonging, the kind that cannot be manufactured, the kind that grows naturally through generations of coexistence. And perhaps this is why Palangka Raya leaves such a lasting impression, because the city constantly challenges assumptions. People expect wilderness and discover urban planning. People expect isolation and discover connection. People expect simplicity and discover depth. Every layer reveals another story. Every journey reveals another surprise. Every conversation reveals another reason to stay longer. In a world obsessed with famous destinations, viral attractions and crowded tourist hotspots, Palangka Raya remains something increasingly rare. Authentic. It does not rely on hype. It does not demand attention. It simply exists, quietly extraordinary, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be understood, waiting to reveal its secrets to those willing to look beyond the obvious. And perhaps that is what makes it unforgettable, because some places impress you for a day, some places entertain you for a week, but a few places change the way you see the world. Palangka Raya belongs in that category, a city born from a grand national vision, a city embraced by one of the planet's most important ecosystems, a city shaped by rivers, forests, and human resilience, a city where nature and progress continue their delicate dance, a city where diversity is not merely tolerated but celebrated, a city where the future and the past meet beneath the endless skies of Borneo. The more you learn about Palangka Raya, the more impossible it becomes to dismiss it as just another city on a map. Because it is not. It is a living story, a hidden gem at the heart of one of Earth's greatest islands, a destination that rewards curiosity, a place that reveals its beauty slowly, layer by layer, until one day you realize something unexpected. You did not simply visit Palangka Raya, you experienced it, and once you do, a single thought lingers long after the journey ends. Palangka Raya is not merely a place worth visiting, it is a place worth understanding, a place worth remembering, and perhaps most importantly of all, a place worth exploring far longer than you ever planned. Because the truth is this, the greatest destinations in the world are rarely the ones that scream the loudest. They are the ones that stay with you, long after the photographs have been uploaded, long after the souvenirs have been packed away, long after the journey itself has ended. And Palangka Raya has a remarkable ability to do exactly that. The longer you stay, the more you begin to understand that this city is not simply a destination, it is a reflection of something larger, a reflection of Borneo, a reflection of Indonesia, a reflection of the delicate relationship between humanity and nature. Many cities around the world grew because people conquered the landscape around them. Palangka Raya grew while learning how to live alongside it. That difference matters, because the forests surrounding the city are not ordinary forests. The peatlands of central Kalimantan are among the most unique ecosystems on Earth. For thousands of years, layers of organic material accumulated beneath these wetlands, creating vast natural carbon reservoirs that play an essential role in regulating the global climate. Scientists consider tropical peatlands some of the most important carbon storage systems on the planet. When protected, they help stabilize environmental balance. When damaged, their effects can be felt far beyond Indonesia's borders. This means that the landscapes around Palangka Raya are not only valuable for the people who live here, they matter to the entire world. Every tree preserved, every hectare restored, every conservation effort supported. These actions contribute to a much larger story, the story of protecting one of Earth's most important ecological treasures. Few travelers realize that when they visit this region, they are standing inside a globally significant environmental frontier. And perhaps nowhere is that reality more visible than in the forests that surround the city. Imagine traveling along narrow waterways beneath towering trees, sunlight filtering through dense canopies, the distant calls of wildlife echoing across the forest, the sensation that nature remains in command. Not humans, not machines, not concrete. Nature, powerful, ancient, unapologetically alive. Experiences like these remind visitors of something modern society often forgets. Human beings were never meant to exist completely separated from the natural world. And in Palangka Raya, that connection remains visible. It remains tangible. It remains real. Yet, nature is only one chapter of this city's story. To truly understand Palangka Raya, you must also understand the people who have called this region home for generations. Among them are the Dayak communities, whose traditions, wisdom, and cultural heritage continue to shape the identity of central Kalimantan. For centuries, Dayak societies developed deep relationships with the forests, rivers, and landscapes around them. Their knowledge was not written in skyscrapers, it was written in rivers, in forests, in oral traditions, in ceremonies, in stories passed from one generation to the next. Long before sustainability became a global conversation, indigenous communities here understood something fundamental: that nature is not merely a resource, it is a partner, it is a responsibility, it is part of life itself. Visitors who take the time to learn about Dayak culture quickly discover a rich world of traditions, art, music, architecture, and philosophy. The intricate carvings, the vibrant traditional clothing, the powerful dances, the ceremonial rituals. Each element reflects centuries of cultural development and adaptation. These traditions are not relics trapped in museums. They remain living expressions of identity, living connections between the past and the future. And that continuity gives Palangka Raya a cultural depth that many destinations struggle to match. Because here, heritage is not something displayed behind glass. It is something actively lived, something celebrated, something shared. As the city continues to modernize, it carries these cultural roots with it. Rather than abandoning tradition, Palangka Raya demonstrates how modernization and cultural preservation can coexist. It is one of the reasons the city feels authentic. Nothing feels forced, nothing feels artificial. The past remains present, the future remains possible, and both move forward together. Perhaps this balance explains why so many first-time visitors underestimate the city. They arrive expecting a provincial capital. What they discover is something much more complex, a place where ecological importance, historical significance, cultural richness, and modern development intersect. A place that quietly defies stereotypes, a place that rewards curiosity. The city itself continues to evolve. Universities educate new generations of leaders, researchers, and innovators. Businesses create opportunities. Infrastructure expands. Technology becomes increasingly integrated into daily life. And yet, despite these changes, Palangka Raya has managed to preserve something that many rapidly growing cities lose: its sense of space, its sense of calm, its sense of connection. That may sound simple, but in today's world it is increasingly rare. Across the globe, millions of people live surrounded by noise, surrounded by congestion, surrounded by endless schedules and constant urgency. Many people dream of finding somewhere that offers a different rhythm, somewhere that allows them to slow down, to think, to reflect, to reconnect with themselves. Palangka Raya offers exactly that, not because it is isolated from the modern world, but because it has developed differently. Its scale creates breathing room, its landscapes create perspective, its culture encourages community, its environment inspires humility, and together those qualities create something powerful: peace. Not the absence of activity, not the absence of ambition, but the presence of balance. That balance becomes especially visible during the city's quiet evenings. As daylight fades, the atmosphere changes. Families gather, street food vendors prepare local specialties, conversations fill public spaces. The city glows beneath the warm colors of sunset, and somewhere beyond the lights, the forests remain, silent guardians surrounding the urban landscape, watching, waiting, enduring. The contrast is extraordinary. Modern life unfolding beside one of the world's oldest ecosystems. Few places achieve such harmony, even fewer sustain it. And that is why Palangka Raya deserves greater recognition, not because it seeks fame, not because it demands attention, but because it represents possibilities that much of the world desperately needs. Possibilities of sustainable development, possibilities of cultural harmony, possibilities of coexistence between progress and preservation, possibilities of creating cities designed for people rather than simply for growth. In many ways, Palangka Raya feels less like a city chasing the future and more like a city carefully preparing for it. That distinction matters, because the future belongs to places capable of balancing human needs with environmental realities. The future belongs to places capable of protecting cultural identity while embracing innovation. The future belongs to places capable of building prosperity without sacrificing the natural systems that sustain life. Palangka Raya offers a glimpse of what that future might look like. And perhaps that is why Sukarno saw such potential here decades ago. Perhaps he recognized what many people are only beginning to understand today, that geography matters, that vision matters, that planning matters, that harmony matters, and that some places possess extraordinary potential long before the rest of the world notices. Today, visitors arriving in Palangka Raya may not immediately see all of these layers. They may first notice the wide roads, the green spaces, the river, the forests, the sunsets. But if they stay long enough, something changes. They begin to see the deeper story, the story beneath the scenery, the story beneath the statistics, the story beneath the skyline, a story of resilience, a story of identity, a story of nature and humanity learning to share the same future. And once you understand that story, Palangka Raya becomes impossible to forget, because it is not simply a destination, it is an idea that cities can grow without losing their soul, an idea that development can respect nature, an idea that diversity can become strength, an idea that progress and preservation do not have to be enemies. In a century defined by enormous challenges, those ideas may prove more valuable than ever. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within this remarkable city. Palangka Raya is not extraordinary because it is perfect. It is extraordinary because it shows what is possible. What is possible when vision meets patience. What is possible when culture meets openness. What is possible when humanity chooses partnership over domination. What is possible when a city remembers that it is part of nature, not separate from it. And as the world continues to search for sustainable paths forward, the lessons waiting in the heart of Borneo may become increasingly important. Because hidden among the forests, rivers, peatlands, and endless horizons of central Kalimantan stands a city with a message worth hearing. A city that has never needed to be the loudest, a city that never needed to be the most famous, a city that simply became itself, and in doing so became unforgettable. Unforgettable. That word appears often when people describe the places that changed them. Not necessarily the richest places, not the tallest, not the most luxurious, not even the most visited. The places people remember most are often the places that reveal something deeper, something unexpected, something that forces them to rethink what they thought they knew about the world. Palangka Raya is one of those places, because beneath its quiet reputation lies a city connected to some of the biggest stories of our time. Stories about climate, stories about biodiversity, stories about indigenous wisdom, stories about sustainable development, stories about the future of humanity itself. The world often talks about great capitals, great financial centers, great tourist destinations, yet some of the most important places on Earth rarely appear on those lists. They are the places that protect forests, the places that safeguard rivers, the places that preserve traditions, the places that quietly carry responsibilities far larger than themselves. Palangka Raya is one of those places. Look at a satellite image of Borneo. The island appears immense, a sea of green stretching toward the horizon, an ecosystem so vast that it crosses international borders and supports millions of lives. For centuries, explorers, scientists, naturalists, and adventurers have been fascinated by this island. Its forests hold species that exist nowhere else. Its rivers carve pathways through landscapes that still feel mysterious. Its biodiversity ranks among the richest on the planet. And right in the middle of this extraordinary environment stands Palangka Raya, a city uniquely positioned between the modern world and one of Earth's last great wilderness regions. That position gives the city a responsibility unlike most urban centers. It is not merely growing, it is helping shape the future relationship between development and conservation. Every decision matters. Every protected forest matters. Every restoration project matters. Every effort to educate future generations matters. Because what happens here affects far more than local communities. It affects ecosystems that influence global environmental stability. This reality becomes especially clear when discussing peatland restoration. For decades, scientists have studied the importance of tropical peat ecosystems. These wetlands act as giant natural storage systems for carbon. When healthy, they help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. When degraded, they can release enormous quantities of stored carbon into the atmosphere. That is why restoration efforts in central Kalimantan attract international attention. What may appear to some as a local environmental project is actually part of a much larger global challenge. And Palangka Raya sits at the center of many of those conversations. This means that visitors are not simply exploring another city. They are witnessing one of the most important environmental stories of the 21st century. Yet, despite this significance, the city remains remarkably approachable. There is no overwhelming sense of urgency, no dramatic attempt to market itself as something it is not. Palangka Raya simply continues its work, quietly, steadily, confidently. Perhaps because the people here understand something that many others have forgotten. The most meaningful achievements often take time. Forests take time to grow, communities take time to build, trust takes time to earn, and great cities take time to become what they are meant to be. This patience can be felt throughout daily life. Spend time in local neighborhoods, visit traditional markets, talk with residents, observe the rhythm of the city. You begin to notice something. People still make time for one another. Conversations matter. Community matters. Relationships matter. In an age increasingly dominated by screens and distractions, that human connection feels refreshing, authentic, grounded, real. And perhaps that is one of Palangka Raya's greatest strengths, its humanity. Because a city is ultimately more than roads, more than buildings, more than infrastructure. A city is its people, their dreams, their struggles, their values, their hopes for the future. And the people of Palangka Raya have helped create a community that feels welcoming without losing its identity. Visitors often arrive as strangers. They leave feeling connected. Connected to the landscape, connected to the culture, connected to the stories, connected to the people. That connection becomes even stronger when exploring the region's cultural traditions. Across central Kalimantan, cultural celebrations continue to bring communities together. Music fills the air. Traditional dancers tell ancient stories. Art reflects generations of creativity. Ceremonies preserve knowledge passed down across centuries. These traditions serve as living reminders that progress does not require forgetting where you came from. In fact, the strongest futures are often built upon the strongest foundations. Palangka Raya understands this. Its modern development does not erase its heritage. Instead, it builds upon it. The result is a city that feels both contemporary and timeless, forward-looking and deeply rooted, modern and traditional, urban and natural. Few places manage to balance these qualities successfully. Palangka Raya does, and that balance becomes increasingly valuable in a rapidly changing world. Because around the globe, societies are asking difficult questions. How can cities grow sustainably? How can economic development coexist with environmental protection? How can cultural diversity remain a source of strength rather than division? How can communities preserve identity while embracing innovation? These are not simple questions, yet Palangka Raya offers meaningful examples. Not perfect answers, but real examples. Examples grounded in experience rather than theory. Examples that demonstrate possibility. And possibility is powerful, because every positive change begins with the belief that something better can be achieved. That belief can be felt throughout this city, in its educational institutions, in its environmental initiatives, in its cultural programs, in its community spirit, in its long-term vision. There is a sense that Palangka Raya is building not only for today, but for generations still to come. A city planting trees whose shade future generations will enjoy. A city protecting ecosystems future generations will inherit. A city preserving traditions future generations will celebrate. A city creating opportunities future generations will expand upon. That mindset deserves recognition, because the greatest legacy any society can leave behind is not wealth, not monuments, not statistics. It is stewardship. The willingness to leave the world better than it was found. And in many ways, Palangka Raya embodies that principle. Perhaps this is why the city leaves such a profound impression on thoughtful travellers. not because it overwhelms them with attractions, but because it invites reflection. It encourages curiosity. It rewards patience. It reveals itself gradually, like a great book whose meaning deepens with every chapter. Like a river whose beauty becomes more apparent the longer you follow its course. Like a forest whose secrets reveal themselves only to those willing to slow down and listen. Palangka Raya does not rush its story, and neither should you, because every road leads to another discovery. Every conversation leads to another perspective. Every sunset leads to another memory. Every visit reveals another layer of understanding. Eventually, you realize something remarkable. Palangka Raya is not hidden because it lacks value. It is hidden because the world has not fully caught up with its significance. But that is changing. More travelers are beginning to look beyond conventional destinations. More people are searching for authenticity. More people are seeking meaning rather than spectacle. More people are asking deeper questions about culture, nature, sustainability, and purpose. When they do, many of them eventually find their way here, to the heart of Borneo, to the city of wide horizons, to the city of rivers and forests, to the city of resilience and vision, to the city that once inspired dreams of becoming a national capital, to the city that continues to inspire something perhaps even more important: hope. Hope that cities and nature can coexist. Hope that diversity can unite communities. Hope that development can remain responsible. Hope that the future can still be built wisely. And in a world that often feels overwhelmed by challenges, hope may be the most valuable resource of all. That is the hidden treasure of Palangka Raya. Not gold, not monuments, not skyscrapers. Hope. Quiet, steady, persistent, as enduring as the forests, as flowing as the Kahayan River, as expansive as the skies above central Kalimantan. A hope waiting for every visitor willing to discover it. And the deeper you journey into Palangka Raya's story, the clearer one truth becomes. This city is not merely one of Indonesia's hidden gems. It is one of its most important untold stories. A story the world deserves to hear. A story worth sharing. A story worth remembering. And a story that has only just begun. Only just begun. Because every great city has two histories. The first is the history recorded in books, dates, maps, government documents, official milestones, the events that historians preserve for future generations. But there is another history, a quieter history, a history written not with ink, but with human experience. The history of mornings beside the river, the history of families building lives from the land, the history of children growing up beneath vast Bornean skies, the history of communities overcoming challenges together, the history of dreams carried from one generation to the next. To truly understand Palangka Raya, you must understand both. You must see the city not only as it appears today, but as part of a much longer story stretching across centuries. Long before modern roads crossed this landscape, long before administrative borders were drawn, the rivers of central Kalimantan served as the highways of an older world. The Kahayan River, the Orangutan River, the Sukarno River. These waterways connected communities long before concrete connected cities. They carried trade, they carried culture, they carried knowledge, and perhaps most importantly, they carried life. Everything revolved around the rivers: transportation, communication, food, identity, survival. Even today, despite technological advancement, the rivers continue to shape the region's character. They are reminders that civilization here was never built against nature. It was built alongside it. That distinction is important because throughout history, many societies viewed nature as something to conquer. The forests were obstacles. The rivers were barriers. The wilderness was a challenge to overcome. But in Borneo, nature was often understood differently, not as an enemy, not as an obstacle, but as a partner, a provider, a teacher, a source of wisdom. That philosophy remains visible throughout the region. It lives within local traditions. It lives within indigenous knowledge. It lives within everyday practices passed down through generations. And it gives Palangka Raya a unique perspective in a rapidly changing world. Because modern society increasingly recognizes what traditional communities understood long ago. Human prosperity cannot exist without environmental health. The two are inseparable. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the climate that sustains agriculture, the ecosystems that support biodiversity, all are connected. And nowhere does that connection feel more obvious than in central Kalimantan. Stand beside a forest here, listen carefully. You will hear life everywhere. Birds calling from hidden branches, insects humming beneath leaves, the rustling movement of unseen animals, the gentle flow of water through wetlands and streams. The forest is never truly silent. It is alive. Every sound is a reminder that countless species share this environment. Every sound is evidence of a complex web of life that has evolved over millions of years. Many visitors describe their first experience in Borneo's forests as humbling. Not because the landscape is intimidating, but because it reveals how small we truly are, how recent human history really is, how extraordinary nature remains. And perhaps humility is one of the greatest gifts Palangka Raya offers. The city invites people to slow down, to observe, to listen, to appreciate, to reconnect with realities often forgotten in modern urban life. There are few places left in the world capable of providing that experience. Palangka Raya remains one of them. Yet while nature defines much of the city's identity, its future is being shaped by people, young people, students, entrepreneurs, researchers, artists, teachers, community leaders, innovators. Across the city, a new generation is helping define what Palangka Raya will become in the decades ahead. They inherit enormous opportunities, but they also inherit enormous responsibilities. The responsibility of protecting forests, the responsibility of preserving culture, the responsibility of creating economic opportunities, the responsibility of ensuring that development remains sustainable, the responsibility of balancing progress with preservation. These challenges are not unique to Palangka Raya. Cities around the world face similar questions. What makes Palangka Raya special is the context in which these questions are being answered. Because here, the answers are not abstract. They are immediate, visible, tangible. Every development decision has environmental consequences. Every conservation effort has social implications. Every policy influences both present and future generations. The city exists at a crossroads between growth and stewardship, and that makes its story globally relevant. In many ways, Palangka Raya represents one of the defining challenges of the 21st century. How do we build prosperous societies without destroying the natural systems upon which prosperity depends? That question matters everywhere. It matters in Asia, it matters in Europe, it matters in Africa, it matters in the Americas, and it certainly matters here in Borneo. The world is watching places like Palangka Raya more closely than many people realize. Scientists study the forests, environmental organisations support conservation projects, universities conduct research, governments examine development strategies, because the lessons learned here have significance far beyond Indonesia. They contribute to a global conversation about humanity's future. And that future may depend on our ability to learn from places exactly like this. Places where nature remains powerful, places where cultural traditions remain alive, places where development is still being shaped, places where choices made today will influence generations tomorrow. This gives Palangka Raya a significance that extends beyond tourism. The city is not important simply because it is beautiful, although it is. It is not important simply because it has fascinating history, although it does. It is important because it represents possibility. Possibility grounded in reality. Possibility tested by experience. Possibility supported by people determined to create something meaningful. And perhaps that is why visitors often leave feeling unexpectedly inspired. They arrive expecting a destination. They discover an idea that cities can remain connected to nature, an idea that cultural heritage can remain relevant in the modern world, an idea that growth does not have to come at the expense of identity, an idea that progress can be measured by more than economic statistics alone. Those ideas resonate deeply because they speak to universal human hopes, the hope for belonging, the hope for sustainability, the hope for community, the hope for a future worth passing on. Palangka Raya embodies all of these hopes in its own unique way. Not perfectly, no city is perfect, but sincerely, authentically, determinedly. And sincerity has power, because people recognize it when they encounter it. You can feel it in the city's atmosphere. You can see it in its communities. You can hear it in conversations with residents. You can witness it in efforts to protect both culture and environment. It is woven into the fabric of daily life. This authenticity is becoming increasingly valuable in a world saturated with carefully manufactured experiences. Many destinations market themselves aggressively. Many places compete endlessly for attention. Palangka Raya does something different. It simply invites you to discover it. No exaggeration required, no spectacle necessary. The city trusts that its story is strong enough to speak for itself. And it is, because beneath every wide boulevard lies a vision. Beneath every river reflection lies a history. Beneath every forest canopy lies an ecosystem of global importance. Beneath every cultural celebration lies generations of wisdom. Beneath every sunset lies a reminder that beauty does not need to be loud to be unforgettable. That may be the ultimate lesson of Palangka Raya. The most extraordinary things are not always the most obvious. Sometimes they exist quietly, waiting, growing, enduring, just beyond the spotlight. And those who take the time to notice them often discover something remarkable, not only about the place itself, but about themselves. Because journeys are never only about destinations. They are also about perspective, about learning, about understanding, about transformation. And Palangka Raya has a way of transforming the way people think about cities, nature, and possibility. The longer you stay, the more you realize this city is not standing still. It is evolving, learning, adapting, preparing. Like the great river that flows through its heart, Palangka Raya continues moving forward, patiently, purposefully, relentlessly, toward a future still being written, a future as vast as the forests that surround it, a future as promising as the dreams that built it, a future that may one day make the world look back and say, the signs were always there, The potential was always there. The story was always there. We simply had not paid enough attention until now.